Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we are back for another session this morning, and we are going to be continuing where we stopped. I think was on Monday. Yes, that was the last time we did Intro to Web, and so we are going to be starting and continue from there. By the way, I'm going to promote everyone so that I will ask a question because I gave an assignment and till now nobody has submitted anything. So I would just like to hear feedback from you. Reason why you didn't do the assignment. For some, I got text messages why they couldn't do it. And but if you think you had problems during the assignment or probably you tried it and couldn't get it done, I would like you to quickly let me know now, maybe through chat. Maybe you can just chat instead of muting yourself. But while we do that, I will quickly try to run us through what we'll be looking at today. We'll be starting with Semantic Web. Semantic Web. Last week, I think we stopped at iframes. I remember we talked about some couple of things. Let me quickly try to do a quick recap of what we talked about. Okay, if you want to talk about your assignment, I've allowed you to unmute yourself. You can tell me what you have in mind and why it was not done. Okay, so let's start. We talked about HTML, and now we can build a web page or a website with HTML. And then we mentioned the only language or the only syntax or the only way that the HTML can communicate with the web browser is through HTML tags. And we also went further to explain what HTML tag means and how to write them in terms of the syntax using the greater than and less than symbol. Okay, and then we explained the structure of HTML page from beginning, from top to bottom, beginning to the end, starting with the doc type, the HTML tag, the head tag, the body tag, and the rest of them. We move further to explain what all that means, and then we looked at tags, and we gave a rule that for every opening tag, there's a corresponding closing tag, which is very important. And then we gave some exceptions to some tags that doesn't have a corresponding closing tags, but instead you use a slash to close them, just like you have the break line tag. We talked about paragraphs, why and how you should use it. That was explained. We also look at divs that we use to divide segments of your body of the page. Then we talked about block level elements, inline elements. We talked about your span and how to use them. Then we talked about comments. Comments are like remarks or information that you don't want the browser to display. So it's just for people that are reading your codes or that are reading your information online, your codes, yes. It's just for them to be able to understand or to add additional information for them. Maybe this section of code is doing this section of code is doing that. Or probably you made a mistake and you have written some line of code that are plenty and probably you copied it online because in programming, okay, I forgot to say this at the beginning. In programming, most of the time you might know up to 80% or 90% of what you want to do, but the 10% might be obscure to you or you may not know it. But we always Google. Google is our friend. Every programmer does that. You can't be a fountain of knowledge and know everything. So most of the time you need to resort to Googling and checking this information online. So probably you Google the code and then the code is complicated. You don't understand it 100%, but you used it and it worked for you on your page. Good luck to that. And then later I realized that this code is not really needful, but I don't want to remove it from my page. I just want to keep it there in case I come back next time and I might need it. So those kind of information, you can just comment it out by using the comments to exclude it from your page. It will still be there. You can read it, but it's not useful for anybody. Okay. While there are some principles to clean codes. Clean codes. When you are writing clean codes, your code must be readable and must be as simple as possible and understandable by other developers. So some believes that you shouldn't comment a lot, while there are some school of thought that says you can comment as long as you want. But I will leave that to you to decide when you delve into your programming. If at any time in this course you need to call me back or to ask some questions, I'm always here. You can just raise your hand. I will check and then I would answer your questions. So we talked about attributes, that inside a tag, we could have some attributes. Attributes are like your characteristics. Let's say a human being, and I have one head, two hands, and all that. So I also have a name. So also tags can be identified by their names, by their ID, by some styles. Like now I'm wearing a polo shirt, styled by, I don't know the designer, but you can add styles also to beautify tags. Okay, so those are the attributes that we are talking about here. And then we described with this diagram to make you understand more about it. We also talked about class attributes, but I briefly mentioned it, and I said when we get into CSS, we are going to look more into that. Okay, this is the ID attribute I was talking about. It helps you to uniquely identify what's a paragraph. Then we went into list. We talked about ordered list and unordered list, and then we did a lot of examples using our Visual Studio Code text editor that we're using. So today we also talked briefly about forms. Yes, I remember, and I gave an assignment out, but I would like to continue from there today. There was a question that someone asked concerning validations, and I said, okay, we've not gotten there. I don't want to delve into validation because there are different types of validation you can talk about. Maybe the simplest one being the semantic web form validation, or you want to go into complex validations using JavaScript. Okay, and but I said we will get there. So in this part of the semantic web, I will try to understand. I'll try to explain what that means. So, like I said, we'll be using Visual Studio Code. So if you have yours, just keep it open. By the way, I'm recording this video is being recorded. So in case you miss any part of the things I will be saying, there's an opportunity for you to just watch it online. I'll be uploading it maybe 2 hours after the lecture when the video is done. And also every 40 minutes, we'll be going on short break because we are using a free version of Zoom, and Zoom times out every 40 minutes. So now we've spent about 21 minutes now since I started this meeting. So in the next 20 minutes, this video or this meeting is going to end. So all you have to do in that case is to, instead of ending the video, is to re-click the link, the same link that you used to enter this video, this meeting. Just click on it again and it will be activated for you. Okay, so that's all you have to do. All right. Let's begin the work that we have for today. Semantic web. So what is semantic web? Semantic web, like I explained the other time, it's all about meaning. Syntax is about how you should write something, but semantics tells you about what does this mean and how is this being interpreted on the web browser. So we'll be starting by explaining. So the approach I'm going to use today is simple. I'm going to be talking about this theory most of the time. I'll talk about it and we'll just delve into the practicals so that we can really grasp what we are talking about, because I want us to have both the theoretical understanding and also how to write these things. Remember, HTML is all about tags. So HTML is the simplest thing in programming, I would say. because it's all about tags. And there's something they call what you see is what you get. What you see is what you get. Is whatever you typed in into HTML, that's what the browser is going to display for you. So we have to keep that in mind also. Okay, so semantics. The goal is to generate information that is what easily understood by computer and by human. Okay, so now remember the history of World Wide Web when we started and why HTML came into place. Okay, so now for these interconnected documents online, for the people that are looking for information on your website or on your web application to be able to get those information out, the crawler or Google that is fetching those information when people are searching must be able to access your site and understand what you have written on your site, okay, before it can present the information to whoever is looking for such information. Okay, so that was one of the reasons why semantic web, which we also refer to as HTML5, came into place. Okay, so the computer must be able, which is the browser this time around, must be able to understand what you have written in the HTML, and also human beings. So when reading your code and reading the information, you should be able to understand it. So like I said, syntax talks about how you say something, how you write your code, what it is, and then semantic explain the meaning behind what you are doing. So this is just a brief introduction. Okay, so now I said, whenever I'm talking about semantic web, I'm always referring to HTML5. HTML has been in existence before HTML5 came into place. HTML5 is, like I said, it is to address the absence of semantic clarity in older versions. So now web browsers now support HTML5. Most web browsers, even Internet Explorer, so that it does, but there are some things that will not work in Internet Explorer. So, or maybe their latest version called Edge, as far as I know, maybe that's as addressed, but I don't think I've used that for a long time now. Okay, so we have this information in front of you as I'm displaying my screen, so you can read about this and all that. So let's move to the next one. So what and how does semantic web looks like? The father of HTML, or the father of World Wide Web, his name is Tim Berners-Lee. He said semantic web, why he decided to build semantic web is that this is an extension of the current web, which is information is given a well-defined meaning, better enabling computers and people to work in cooperation. He was the one that started HTML because he wanted to be able to tag documents online for research purposes, for magazines and newspaper industry to be able to have connected information and enable search. So, and he realized that the HTML he has is not doing enough justice to it. So he decided to go further and introduce semantic web. And that's what we have today. Now, if you remember when I showed the structure of HTML earlier, I said we have the head, we have the body, right? Now, in HTML5, these things have been broken down into different things. Now, we have the header. That doesn't mean we still don't have the head, but now in the head, we can have the header. We can have the navigation, which we call nav, where you have all your menus or hyperlinks or anchor tags to move from one page to another in your website. Then we have an article and we have a section. Then we also have an aside and a footer. So these are the things we'll be looking at today before we move on to CSS. Okay, so one by one, we'll look at how and what does this mean. So, but this diagram that you have in front of you is simply explaining how and what position it is to be. Okay, so when you use all this directly in HTML alone, they will not show exactly like this unless you apply styling to it. So we are going to, I'm going to copy a code somewhere and I'm going to run you through the code. So we'll see how we can apply this to work. The header element. So it provides an introductory content to your page. So for example, like I said, that you have an header or a header doesn't mean that you don't have the head segments where you always put your title like you did before. But we just have this semantic element called header on your page so that you can add more introduction to your website and every other introductory information you want to add. Also, you can add your heading tag. We talked about H1, H2 to H6. So you can add that too to your website. So that's all what header is meant for on the page. And so when your Google crawler is crawling your page, once it sees the header tag, then it knows that if it wants to get the introductory information to what your website is all about or what that page is saying, it knows that it can find it in the header segment of your page. Let's move on to the next. So I'll talk about this briefly, then we'll move on. We'll go to the practical. Okay. So the next one is the main. So after the header, we have the main. Okay. It contains you remember in the previous explanation I did of the whole HTML page structure. We have the head, we have the HTML, the head, and then we have the body. So all these things I'm talking about now, from what you've seen here in this part, you can see my mouse moving. You can see that every other information that I'm talking about in semantics comes in the body. Okay. So now, if you have the header section, the next part is the main. The main is, for example, let's say you have a website that has 3 pages. Okay. Let's see if we can. I need to share another screen so that you can see an example. Just a minute. Okay. For example, let's look at this. Yes. So this is an example of a page, right? But this is just a single page. We call it SPA. Sometimes a single page application. It's a website and it's a web application. I'll explain that later. So let's say you have this and you want to move from one page to another. So, but this is not moving from one page to another, just moving from one segment of the page to another. Ideally, you can scroll down. I believe we can all see my screen. So ideally, you can scroll down on the page because it's a very long page, right? But instead of scrolling, we decided to put headers or navigation bars or hyperlinks to move us to each segment as quickly as possible, right? So now, let's say I'm moving from one page to another, or let me use another, let's use this. Let's log into this so we can see it. But we need to understand what we are talking about. So in this application, we have the menu on this side. So it's not every time your menu must be horizontally. You can arrange your menu any way you want. Okay. So let's say I want to move from one page to another. Please take a look at this menu side. It will not change. The whole thing will still remain the same as I'm moving from one page to another. Let's try and see. I'm moving to another page, event management. Let me go to company setup. Company management. You can see that my menu are still the same, but this place, this area is the one changing. Okay, so that's all I want to try to explain. When I move into something else, okay, we have another page. So, but this menu remains the same. Okay, so let me share my slide back. So the part that is changing, okay, because as I'm moving on the menu from one place to another, I'm moving to different pages or different HTML page on my website or my web application. So the part that is changing is the main part, right? But the header part or my navigation part or the menu link part will not change, okay? So that header part can span across all my pages, while the main part is the information that are particular or unique to the exact page that you are visiting. Okay, so that's what we represent in semantics as the main. We'll get to this when we move on. So the article content is just an independent piece. So this is just grammar. Okay, it's trying to tell us, especially for people that like people that are publishing when you go to all these newspaper websites and all that. So all these are majorly for them. They understand how to use it, but that doesn't mean you as a developer building a site, you can't also use them. So it could be used for a blog post, magazine, and newspaper, the rest of them. But it's always contain content that makes sense on its own independently. Then we also have the section, okay? So you can use it sometimes to represent a group of related content, but when you are using it in an article, okay, there's a difference in when you are using it for as an article. Sorry, I just got notified that we have less than 10 minutes more to end this meeting. So if this meeting should go off at any time, just try to click up back on the link and you can join the meeting back. Okay, so like I was explaining, the section part can be used to represent a group of related content, or you can use it inside an article. So depending on how you want to lay out your information. So, but when it's used within an article, you have the information on the slide, which says that the section similar to the purpose of an article element with the main difference